Daniel Bisasso here, and today I'm going to share my AS story. As a reminder, please click the subscribe button and bell icon to get notifications when I release new videos. So my AS journey began similar to many others. I was pretty healthy and active. I played sports. I like to play tennis and basketball and swimming and jogging. But suddenly one night I started to experience excruciating pain in my sacroiliac joint, the SI joint. The pain was really intense, and I couldn't roll over in bed. I couldn't adjust. I was limping everywhere I went. I immediately assumed maybe it was something I did in sports, maybe playing tennis or basketball, or even something related to work. Because I'm self-employed, I'm a videographer by profession, and mainly I do wedding videos. I still needed to go to work. I needed to do my job. I had a lot of bookings, and so I would just push through and take anti-inflammatories to deal with the pain. The anti-inflammatories I was taking, the doctor had given me, were definitely helping a lot, but I still had a lot of pain and I was limping around. But one thing I noticed was when I would go to a job and I would be on my feet all day, actually my joints felt a little bit better, and they weren't as stiff. It wasn't as painful to move. So I wasn't sure if it was related to my work or what. It was really just a big mystery to me. When it became really noticeable to other people, I got comments from my father-in-law saying that I was walking like his 80-year-old father. So I really looked bad. It was noticeable. And at a certain point, I was afraid that, I could go somewhere and not be able to walk. So I started carrying crutches with me wherever I went to kind of ease up on the one side of the SI joint that was really in pain. So that's kind of my background. That's kind of the symptoms and the struggles that I was facing, the pain. So obviously this sent me on a quest for answers, and I went to doctors to find out what was going on. And so my first doctor I went to, he actually did some maneuvers with my leg to figure out where the pain was, and he figured out that it was sacroiliitis, and he told me that I should go on a regimen of taking anti-inflammatory pills, and if that didn't work, he basically referred me to another doctor whose name slips my mind right now, but the last name of the doctor I recognized as being the doctor that had given my wife an epidural during her labor with our firstborn. So I asked my doctor, is this the same doctor that does injections? And he said, yes, it is. And so I thought, you know what, that's not something I want. I'll just take the oral pills and I'll try to figure out what's going on my own, or at least get a second opinion and keep looking. But one of the problems in figuring out what was causing my pain was I was actually referring to the pain in my hip. If any of you know, the SI joint is actually in the most lowest part of the back. It's not actually the same place that you call your hip. The hip is more in the front and upper part of the pelvis. So by telling doctors the pain was in my hip, they were, doing MRIs in the wrong place, and they were examining me kind of incorrectly. So the first couple MRIs and X-rays didn't do any good because we were looking at the wrong place. Now, one of the doctors I went to was a specialist in nerves and the spine. And so we started to examine the nerves and the spine to see if everything was all right. I went to get another MRI, and they took the scan of the lower part of the spine to see the nerves and everything like that. So of course, when the results came back, everything was okay. My spine, the discs had no problems. There was no pinched nerve. However, in the notes, the doctor had noticed inflammation in the SI joint. And so in notes, he had said, it looks like sacroiliitis and possibly ankylosing spondylitis. That kind of triggered in my memory that the doctor had originally said it was sacroiliitis. And so I decided that I should follow his original plan and see the doctor that he had referred me to. Well, it turns out that that doctor, yes, had the same last name, but it was the wife of the doctor who specializes in epidurals, and she happened to be a bone and joint specialist she also did injections, but it was a different person than I was thinking. So I went to her, and now that we had these notes suggesting ankylosing spondylitis, she was able to run the blood test to confirm the gene, the HLA-B27 gene, and yeah, that was a relief for me. It had been a year and a half of pain and of searching for an answer, and it was just a relief to know what was going on. She said, you know, the main thing is focus on your posture so that when you fuse, which is inevitable, when you fuse, you will fuse straight. So the advice was basically, you know, just make sure you're straight, so when you fuse, you're not bent over and hunched. And then she offered, of course, the injections in the location, and also, I believe, some other medication. Whatever it was, she told me one of the side effects would be it would impact your mood. You would be maybe irritable or nervous or whatever the case. And I thought, you know what, that doesn't sound appealing to me. I asked, is there any natural type of method of dealing with this? And she kind of, without much enthusiasm, she suggested an arthritis diet. So I definitely preferred taking a diet rather than taking drugs that would have just weird side effects. At least give it a shot. So this diet was extremely limiting. From what I remember, it included getting rid of all bread and some meats, some vegetables, some fruits, all sugar, and I believe some other things. But as you could tell, that kind of takes away everything, maybe except for lettuce. No, it wasn't, but it was just very difficult. But however, I tried it out, and actually after a few days, just by that alone, maybe about 4 days or so, I felt much better. I felt loose in my joints, at least drastically reduced pain, and I felt great actually. But of course it was very restrictive and hard to keep, and for my wife it was very hard to prepare meals and things like that. And actually, so this brings her into the story. My wife, at the same time as all this had been going on, my son was dealing with some, severe eczema. He would get these breakouts in his kind of right in his elbow creases and behind the knees. And she had been researching natural ways to treat eczema with diet, and she had purchased a book called the AIP Diet by Sarah Ballantyne. So AIP Diet stands for Autoimmune Protocol, and that autoimmune covers an umbrella. It's an umbrella that covers, plethora of conditions, including multiple sclerosis, eczema, IBS, and others, and ankylosing spondylitis. So it made sense to give it a try, and within that diet, it felt less restrictive in a lot of ways. At least I don't think there was any limits on what kind of meat I could eat, and etc. So we tried it, and again, it was the results were good, and we were having success managing pain. So at the same time as all this is going on, I'm on this AIP diet. I'm also researching on YouTube, and I'm finding channels like Ralph Fitness, who's talking a lot about how he deals with AS with diet and exercise and meditation and whatnot. But I saw a common theme that many people had success with a low starch diet, and that mainly consisted of taking away potatoes and bread, wheat flour. So I adjusted my AIP diet to not be as restrictive, but just keep out the wheat flour and the potatoes. And I found that it made it easier to stick to my diet, but still had the success. So from that point on, kind of being influenced by all these different methods, the AIP diet, the low starch, different YouTube channels that were sharing people's experience, I started to recognize what triggered my pain, and for me, I started making direct correlations to what I had eaten and pain. So I would be feeling great, and say all of a sudden I notice I'm a little bit sore in my SI joint, then I would think back, what did I eat? And I would look, and I would notice something in the ingredients that was starch. Usually it would be something that had starch in it. For example, I would feel pain, I would be fine, I would feel pain, and then I would think, okay, well, what did I have for lunch? And then I would think, okay, well, I had a Gatorade with my lunch. And sure enough, I look on the Gatorade bottle, and it would say modified food starch or cornstarch. And I was like, oh wow, the labels, I had to start to read the labels very meticulously, and through that kind of process over time, I started to recognize things that commonly had starch in it, maybe that you don't even suspect. So as long as I stuck to this diet and didn't introduce things with starch in it, it seemed that all my pain was gone, and I didn't take medicine for a very long time, until I had some relapses. The biggest one I had was unintentional. There was a mislabeled soup that we had gotten from a local grocery store. So what I've come to strongly believe is that the ankylosing spondylitis, the pain and the symptoms that come from ankylosing spondylitis, is largely connected to my diet and the food that we eat. Since then, learning more bit by bit, I stumbled across the science behind ankylosing spondylitis, understanding that there's a bacteria in the gut called the Klebsiella that feeds off of starch, and for people with this particular gene, HLA-B27, it causes an autoimmune response that ends up attacking your collagen joints. And so this has just been an incredible realization for me, and that I can manage my AS and reduce the pain, take anti-inflammatories only sparingly, and live a normal life. Even many of my friends who saw me at the worst points, maybe one of them even said, asked me if I even still struggle with it, because he didn't realize, because I haven't been in any pain. So yeah, I just share this story with you in hopes that it would be an encouragement to you, that there is, hope of managing AS. Well, thanks for watching my AS story. If you have any experience with treating your AS with diet, any success or whatnot, or if you have another method that you use to treat your pain, please share it in the comments below, and I'll be sure to reply to you. So yeah, thanks for watching, and God bless. If you enjoyed this video and felt it was valuable in helping you manage your AS, hit the like button and please share this video with others. And if you want more AS content, subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the button on the screen for my free 21-day challenge.